Let me share something with you that changed my life and can change yours. The difference between financial struggle and financial freedom. You know, I didn't start out wealthy. I was broke at age 25, behind on my promises, behind on my bills, behind on everything. And then I learned something, a simple philosophy about how to divide what you have, and everything changed. I'm going to share with you today what I call the 70-30 rule. Now, this isn't some complicated formula that requires a college degree. This is simple. But don't confuse simple with easy. Most people will hear this and nod their heads and then go right back to doing what they've always done. A few, and I hope you're one of them, will actually apply it and watch their lives transform. You know what I discovered? It's not about how much you make. I've met people making $100,000 a year who are broke, and people making $35,000 a year who are building real wealth. The difference? Philosophy. How you think about money, how you allocate it, how you respect it. What I'm about to share with you is the allocation philosophy that took me from broke to millionaire in just 6 years. And here's the beautiful part. This works whether you're making $20,000 a year or $200,000 a year, because success isn't about the amount, it's about the philosophy. You know, I've observed something fascinating over the years. Most people work incredibly hard their entire lives and end up with very little to show for it. Not because they're not smart, not because they're lazy, but because nobody ever taught them the philosophy of financial allocation. Here's what happens. A person gets their paycheck, let's say it's $1,000, and immediately they start paying everyone else. The mortgage company gets paid, the car payment gets paid, the credit cards get paid, the cable company gets paid. Everyone gets paid except the one person who actually earned that money, themselves. And what's left over? If there's anything left over, which there usually isn't, maybe they save it, maybe. This is called the philosophy of scarcity, and I'm telling you, it will keep you exactly where you are for the rest of your life. I used to live this way. I thought the answer was making more money, so I worked harder, took on extra hours, chased the raises, and you know what happened? The more I made, the more I spent. I was on a treadmill, running faster and faster, but never actually getting anywhere. Then I learned something that changed everything. Success is not an accident. It's not luck. It's not about making more money. Success is a process. And the process begins with understanding this one fundamental truth. You must learn to divide your resources before life divides them for you. See, most people think the key to wealth is earning more. And yes, increasing your income is important. But here's what I discovered, and this might upset some of you. It's not what you earn. It's what you do with what you earn that determines your financial future. I once knew a man making 6 figures who was completely broke. I knew another man making $35,000 who was building real wealth. What was the difference? One understood allocation, the other one didn't. The 70-30 rule is the allocation philosophy that changed my life. But let me be clear, this isn't just a budgeting trick. This is a life philosophy that touches every area of your existence. Your money, your time, your energy, your focus, everything. I'm going to share with you 3 specific ways the 70-30 rule transformed my financial life. And I'm telling you, if you apply these principles, really apply them, not just hear them and forget them, 5 years from now, you'll be living in a completely different reality. Now, most people will hear this and do nothing. They'll think it's interesting, maybe even inspiring, and then go right back to their old patterns. Why? Because change is uncomfortable. Discipline is uncomfortable. But you know what else is uncomfortable? Being broke your whole life. So here's my question for you. Which kind of uncomfortable do you want? The temporary discomfort of changing your habits, or the permanent discomfort of financial struggle? Let me share something with you. The first principle, and this is the foundation of everything else, is this. Live on 70% of your after-tax income. Period. No exceptions, no excuses. I don't care if you're making $20,000 a year or $200,000 a year. Live on 70%. Now, some of you are already thinking, Jim, that's impossible. I'm already spending everything I make. And that's exactly my point. That's exactly why you're stuck. Let me explain how this works and why it's so powerful. When you receive your paycheck, let's say it's $1,000 after taxes. You immediately allocate $700 for living expenses and $300 for your future. That's it. That's the rule. Now that $300 for your future gets divided into 3 equal parts. $100 goes into financial investments, stocks, real estate, assets that grow. $100 goes into investing in yourself, books, courses, seminars, education. $100 goes to giving, charity, helping others, keeping money in perspective. You know what this does? First, it develops the muscle of delayed gratification. You learn to distinguish between what you want right now and what you actually need. Second, it creates margin in your life. Financial breathing room that most people never experience in their entire lives. But here's the real magic. It forces you to become resourceful. When you only have $700 to live on instead of $1,000, you start asking better questions. Do I really need this? Is there a better way? What can I do without? These questions make you smarter about money. I learned this principle when I was broke. And let me tell you, when you're broke and someone tells you to live on 70% of what you're already not living on, it sounds ridiculous. But I tried it anyway. And you know what happened? I discovered I could live on less than I thought I needed. And that discovery changed everything. Here's the mathematics of it. Let's say you make $50,000 a year after taxes. That's about $4,166 per month. If you live on 70%, that's $2,916 for living expenses and $1,250 allocated to your future every single month. In 1 year, you've set aside $15,000. Now, most of your friends and neighbors have set aside nothing, zero. They're living paycheck to paycheck. But you've got $15,000 working for you. In 5 years, that's $75,000 plus whatever growth you've gotten from investments. In 10 years, and this is conservative mathematics, at 7% return, you're looking at over $200,000 in assets. And here's the beautiful part. You're still living the same lifestyle you had on day one. You haven't sacrificed your quality of life. You've just been strategic about allocation. But let me tell you something even more important than the money. It's the person you become in the process. You develop financial discipline. You learn to make conscious choices. You build the character that wealth requires. Because here's the truth, and some of you won't like this. You cannot become wealthy with a poor person's philosophy, no matter how much money you make. Now here's where most people go wrong. They say, Jim, I can't live on 70% because I'm already struggling to live on 100%. But that's backwards thinking. You're struggling because you're living on 100%. You're giving yourself no margin, no room to breathe, no capacity to handle emergencies. The person living on 100% is one emergency away from disaster. The car breaks down, crisis. Medical bill shows up, crisis. Unexpected expense, crisis. Why? No margin. But the person living on 70%, they've built resilience into their life. They can handle the unexpected because they prepared for it. This isn't about deprivation, this is about wisdom. Let me tell you the difference between successful people and average people when it comes to money. Successful people understand that living below your means creates freedom. Average people think that spending everything they make is normal, is acceptable, is just how life works. And the results? One group builds wealth that compounds over decades. The other group works their entire lives and retires broke, dependent on the government or their children. Which one do you want to be? Now that's the spending side of the 70-30 rule. But once you're living on 70%, the question becomes, what do you do with that other 30%? That's what I want to talk about next. And this is where it gets really interesting. If this is making sense to you, if you're starting to see money differently, I'd appreciate if you'd hit that like button. It helps us share these principles with more people who need them. The second principle, and this is where most people completely miss it, is this: how you invest that 30% matters as much as saving it in the first place. You see, most people think wealth building is just about accumulating money. It's not. It's about becoming the kind of person who attracts wealth. Here's how I learned to divide that 30%. 3 equal parts. 10% into financial assets, 10% into myself, and 10% into giving. Now let me explain why each of these matters. The first 10%, the financial investment, this goes into assets that grow over time. Stocks, real estate, businesses, index funds. These are your money soldiers. You're sending them out to work while you sleep. This 10% is sacred, non-negotiable. You pay yourself first, before the mortgage, before the car payment, before everything. I started doing this when I was making $57 a week. 10% of $57 is $5.70. That's what I started with. It felt insignificant, but I did it anyway. And you know what I discovered? It's not about the amount. It's about the habit. It's about the discipline. It's about becoming the kind of person who pays themselves first. Now, the second 10%, and this is the one most people completely ignore, goes into investing in yourself. Books, courses, seminars, coaching, education. This is how you increase your value in the marketplace. You see, formal education will make you a living, but self-education will make you a fortune. Think about it this way. If you're earning $50,000 a year and you invest $5,000 of that into your personal development, that's $417 a month. What happens? You're reading books that successful people read. You're attending seminars that successful people attend. You're developing skills that successful people have. Over 5 years, you've invested $25,000 into becoming a different person. Now, here's my question. Do you think that person is still worth $50,000 a year, or are they worth more? Much more. This is how you increase your income, not by working more hours, but by becoming more valuable. The third 10%, giving. This keeps money in perspective. It reminds you that money is a tool, not a god. It keeps you grateful, it keeps you generous, it keeps you human. Let me give you the mathematics on this. Using our $50,000 example, $5,000 per year into financial investments at a conservative 7% return becomes $350,000 in 30 years. That's just the money part. But here's the real magic, the self-investment. I've watched people double their income in 3 years by investing in their personal development. Why? Because they're reading books their competitors aren't reading. They're learning skills their peers don't have. They're thinking at a level that makes them more valuable. I started as a stock clerk making $57 a week. Within 6 years of applying these principles, living on 70%, investing in myself, becoming a student of success, I became a millionaire. Not because I got lucky, not because someone gave it to me, because I understood that success is mathematics, not magic. Here's the mistake I see people make all the time. They say, Jim, I'll invest in myself when I have more money. That's like saying I'll plant seeds when I have a harvest. It doesn't work that way. The investment comes first. The return comes later. That's how nature works. That's how success works. You plant in the spring. You harvest in the fall. You don't wait for fall to start planting. Another mistake. People invest in their financial future but neglect investing in themselves. Then they wonder why their income never grows. Let me tell you something. Your income will rarely exceed your personal development. If you want to earn more, you must become more. Successful people understand that self-investment is not an expense, it's leverage. Every dollar they invest in their growth returns multiples in increased earning power. Average people think education ended when they got their diploma. The difference in results? One group keeps appreciating in value, the other group slowly becomes obsolete. Now, those are the money principles. But there's a third application of the 70-30 rule that most people never think about. And honestly, this might be the most important one. The third principle, and this changed my life more than anything else, is this: spend 70% of your time working on your job and 30% of your time working on your future. This is what separates people who build wealth from people who just earn a paycheck. Let me share something I discovered early in my career. Most people spend 100% of their time working for someone else and 0% of their time working for themselves. They trade all their hours for dollars, and when the hours stop, the dollars stop. There's no leverage. There's no compound effect, just an exchange, time for money. But here's what I learned to do differently. If you're working 40 hours a week, spend about 28 hours being excellent at your job, giving your employer incredible value, and about 12 hours working on your future. Now, what does working on your future mean? Reading books that expand your mind, developing new skills that increase your value, building side projects, networking with people who can open doors, learning about investments, studying successful people, creating assets instead of just trading time for money. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. This is the philosophy that changed everything for me. You see, your job pays your bills today. Important, very important. But working on yourself, that's what pays your bills for the rest of your life. Your job makes you a living, but working on yourself makes you a fortune. Think about it like building a house. You can spend all your time laying bricks for someone else's house, or you can spend 70% of your time laying bricks for someone else and 30% laying bricks for your own house. Over time, which strategy builds your wealth? Here's what this looks like in real numbers. If you dedicate 30% of your working time to personal growth, that's about 12 hours per week. In 1 year, you've invested over 600 hours into yourself. That's the equivalent of 15 full-time work weeks dedicated to your development. In 5 years, that's 3,000 hours. Do you know what you can do in 3,000 hours? You can master a new skill. You can build a business. You can become an expert. You can read 300 books. You can completely transform your trajectory. I use those hours to read, to study successful people, to learn philosophy, to develop speaking skills, to understand business. And those hours, that 30%, those hours created more wealth for me than all the hours I spent working for someone else. Because here's the truth. Your future is created by what you do today, not tomorrow, not next year, not when you have more time. Today. Now here's what people say. Jim, I don't have time for that. I'm already working 40 hours, plus family, plus responsibilities. And here's my response. You're making time for television, aren't you? You're making time for social media. You're making time for activities that don't build your future. The 70-30 time rule isn't about finding new time. It's about reallocating the time you already have. It's about priorities. It's about deciding that your future is important enough to invest in, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you're tired, even when nobody's watching. How long should you work on your future? Until your future arrives. That's the answer. That's the discipline that changes lives. Let me tell you the difference. Successful people treat their time like the valuable resource it is. They allocate it strategically between earning today and building tomorrow. Average people trade all their time for immediate consumption and wonder why their lives never change. The difference in results? One group is building assets. The other is just paying bills. One group is becoming more valuable every year. The other is becoming replaceable. Which one do you want to be? Let me bring all of this together for you. The 70-30 rule isn't 3 separate ideas. It's one unified philosophy of life. And here it is. You cannot build a future by consuming everything in the present. Live on 70% of your income and you create financial margin. Invest that 30% wisely in assets, in yourself, in others, and you create compound growth. Allocate 70% of your time to earning and 30% to becoming, and you create leverage that multiplies your results over decades. This is how you build a life, not just a living. It's like planting a garden. You don't eat all the seeds, do you? You plant some so you can harvest later. The person who eats all their seeds today starves tomorrow. The person who plants consistently, eventually they have abundance. I lived by these principles, and they took me from broke to millionaire. But let me tell you something. The money was just a result. The real transformation was in who I became, the discipline I developed, the patience I learned, the strategic thinking, the character. These are the things that sustain success.
You have a choice to make. Right now, today, you can continue down the path you're on, spending everything you make, investing nothing in your growth, trading all your time for money. Or you can change direction. And here's what I want you to understand. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do all of this tomorrow. But you do need to start. Start with living on 95% instead of 100%. Start with 1 hour per week invested in yourself. Start small, but start. Because here's the reality. Time is passing whether you use it wisely or waste it. 5 years from now, you'll either look back and thank yourself for starting today, or you'll regret that you didn't. The seasons are changing. They always are. The question is, are you preparing or are you just consuming and hoping? Here's what I want you to do today, this week. Calculate your after-tax income. Then commit to living on 70% of that number. Start this month. It will be uncomfortable. Do it anyway.
Set up automatic transfers on payday. 10% to investments, 10% to your personal development fund, 10% to giving. Make it automatic so you don't have to think about it every month. Block out time every week, even if it's just 3 hours to start, to work on your future. Read books, take courses, build a skill. Do something that builds assets instead of just consuming entertainment. And remember this, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. The 70-30 rule is simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. It means straightforward. You know what to do. The question is, will you do it? If this has given you something valuable today, if you're seeing money and time differently than you did when we started, I'd appreciate if you'd hit that like button. It helps share these principles with more people who need them.
Leave a comment below and tell me which of these 3 principles resonated most with you. The spending rule, the investment allocation, the time philosophy. I want to know where you are on this journey. Be honest. And if you haven't subscribed, I invite you to join this community. Hit that subscribe button. Consider becoming a member. We're building a community of people who understand that success isn't an accident. It's a philosophy applied consistently over time. I believe in continuous education. I believe you should invest more in yourself than in anything else. This channel is part of that investment. Every video challenges your thinking and gives you principles that actually work. You cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction. The principles we discussed today, the 70-30 rule, this is your compass. This is how you change direction.
You don't need to be perfect. You just need to start. Take what you learned and put it to work. Live on a little less. Invest in your growth. Allocate your time strategically. Do these simple things consistently, and I promise you, 5 years from now, you'll be living in a completely different reality. The choice is yours. The principles are timeless. The results are inevitable. Now take these truths and build your future.